I thought it'd be a good idea just to kill myself and overdose on a combination of Tylenol and NyQuil.
You don't know what to do as a parent because you feel when your child's hurting, and it's not like a physical pain, it's a mental pain. Until you have somebody who has depression, people have no idea what you have to endure. It's a lot.
Just be happy. Like, what are you depressed about? You have a good home life. You have a mother and father. You have, you're middle class or wealthy, or that you shouldn't have any troubles, and being depressed is something that you can control. It's absolutely not true, and it doesn't make sense that we ignore it and don't, and make it like it's a taboo, like it's something wrong with you if you're depressed.
It's always been in America. It's been hard to be black, but it's hard to be a black addict in active addiction. It's hard to be a black mental health patient.
The problem is our society shuns expressions of emotions, and we bottle things until we blow up. And usually when we blow up, bad things happen.
I think the worst thing you can say to someone who is dealing with depression is just to snap out of it or get over it. It is not a choice. It is a real illness, and there is no way anyone would choose to feel that level of pain and suffering.
If it wasn't for my family paying attention to the signs and getting me the help that I needed, I wouldn't be here today to tell my story.
When I first found out that I was pregnant with Trey, it was by a big mishap. His dad had fainted.
The first time I remember the fact that we were going to be parents of our first child, Selwyn Rogers III, we finally called Trey, was actually in the midst of my own personal health issues. Namely, I had recently fainted playing basketball, and during an evaluation for that episode that would lead to open heart surgery, I actually had an MRI, a test of my heart. And during that testing, I remember getting very anxious and asking for Honda to come to the MRI.
I had to sign forms to go in the room with him, and they asked me if I was pregnant. And I said, I don't know.
Honda actually indicated that she was late. I was like, oh my God, what do you mean late? So that was actually the first time the reality set in that I could indeed be a parent.
This was definitely not a planned pregnancy. I was very surprised and shocked that I was pregnant. We were excited to have our first child.
As I reflect upon that, I remember we were blessed to have been on television for a show called Terry Brazelton's What Every Baby Knows, where we were actually interviewed during the pregnancy.
It was nationally syndicated, so we said, okay, sure. So they started filming from probably 5 months up until delivery.
During pregnancy.
I'm very excited about having a child, and I think I've always wanted to be a father.
Selwyn and Johanna Rogers were first-time parents.
I spent my day taking care of other people.
He was a young resident, she a teacher.
That was an experience because my mother and some close friends and family were concerned that during the delivery they were going to expose me to the world, but they were actually behind my head. During the delivery, for some reason, the epidural was not working for me. And it got to the point where they gave it to me 2 times, and I could still feel every pain of this child coming into the world. So they said, let's try one more time. And they tried it but it didn't take. The third time, that was it, and they said, we're sorry, we can't give you anything. So I basically had a natural birth.
That Trey was born on December 1st, almost midnight, and the reality set in of all that was to be of being a parent.
A day or so before going home, and they wanted the film crew wanted to come back and film some more and let you know that children are very connected to their moms in room. So they did this little thing where they had me call his name.
Meet Selwyn Rogers III.
And I think I was sitting next to him or whatever. I called his name and he would turn his head because he recognized my voice. The bond was there, and he knew his name because when we decided what his name was going to be, I called him Trey. Selwyn is named after his grandfather and father. He is the third Selwyn, so 3 means Trey, T-R-E, so that's why we came up with Trey. As a child, he was always smiling and grinning. I used to sing to him when he was little, this song, brown skin, you know I love your brown skin. So I used to always sing that to him, and his dimples would disappear. I still sing that to him sometimes. But he he's a sweet, sweet baby, and is still a sweet young man, very kind, got along or gets along with everyone. Everyone has always loved Trey. Teachers just adored him, other kids.
When he was about to go into kindergarten, or I think he may have been in kindergarten, his teacher asked to put together a collage of early childhood pictures that represent Trey. And I remember one particular one that was placed in the corner of a collage was him on a beach on St. Croix, where he was digging up sand, and he looked so content, so happy. And Honda had written under the caption, if we let him, Trey would be a beach bum. And I remember thinking about how much that reflects his personality, being relatively easygoing in many ways. He was easy baby to take care of. He got along with people pretty naturally. But there's always this sense that anything that he had to do, you almost had to push him to do it. But in terms of his relationship with other kids, his relationship with other people, he has somewhat of a magnetic personality that people gravitate towards, and that goes back to his early childhood.
As we all know, it takes a village to raise children. You cannot be super mom, super dad, superheroes. It takes a lot to raise children. And I couldn't have done it without the help of my parents.
Growing up, we were always at the house. Sometimes we leave, get out of school, my brothers and I, well, Ty was not in school just yet, but Bryce and I, once we got out of school, my mom would drop us off at my grandparents' house Friday night, and we spent all weekend with them.
Their dad, or Selwyn, was only child, and his dad was busy as a resident, and I was working full time. I just couldn't do it all. So my mom, I can look back on the weekends, my parents would come and get Trey and I and drive us back to their home, and I would sleep, and my mom and dad would watch him so I could get some rest.
We would stay up all night, because my Nana literally just never sleeps. Like, she will stay up till she would probably, well, to this day, she still stays up till 3 in the morning just watching TV. And then she'll wake up at 7 and be fine, not tired, nothing. I don't know how she does it.
My dad was an avid gardener, and he'd always be in the backyard on his deck listening to his music, or his little transistor radio, his music, and it'll be on his grill. And the kids, especially Trey, would have memories of Granddaddy, that's what they call him, Granddaddy, doing those things with him.
I would go with my grandparents pretty much every Sunday. And then this was the best part of Sundays, was we would go out to eat with my grandparents, and then we would either go out to eat or they would cook at the house, and that was just the best time, always the best time. Just spending time with my grandparents, really. Because my grandmother, who I call her Nana, will talk your ear off, and like it's some good life lessons, and then it just becomes so funny all the time. And my grandfather being like the all hardcore old man he is, does like show emotion, but then just talking to him a lot I don't know how to explain it.
You know, they were very instrumental in the rearing of Trey and the additional children that were later to come, but I could not have done it without them. He's always been a good big brother, always. He's always looked out for Bryce. I have millions of pictures of him basically almost choking Bryce, but he's hugging him. So they've always got along pretty well. I think the distance became more as they grew older and Trey started experiencing trouble.
Fast forward to, I remember at the time when he was probably in 3rd or 4th grade, he'd always had an interest in sports, largely around being with other kids. He wasn't the type of kid who wanted to be by himself necessarily, or being bucks. He actually liked being around other kids.
Trey has always been athletically inclined from very young. He was a great baseball player when he was young, and loved the sport. And then he started doing Pop Warner football, and he really began to love football.
He had played baseball, and now he is in middle school, and he had gravitated towards liking football the most. I remember a very dramatic episode when he was in 9th grade, when it was his first freshman game, and he was on defense, and there was a play that happened where there was the running back cut back on the team as he was advancing, and Trey was actually blindsided by the opposing team member.
I was trying to make the play, make the tackle on the running back, and he cut to my right. And as I was trying to adjust to pursue, from my right blind side, the junior, come to find out later, a junior playing in a JV game, blindsided me and hit me in my back. I was knocked to the ground, and I could not feel my legs, could not move my arms. I could barely even move my neck. The only thing I remember is just being numb, not being able to move any part of my body.
It turned out that he was transiently paralyzed. And he actually couldn't feel, or couldn't feel his legs, couldn't move his legs. And I remember thinking, oh my God, he could actually be paralyzed for the rest of his life. But in that very moment, I also remember thinking, because of his nature, because of his easygoing attitude towards things, and because of his ability to relate well with people, that I had this image of him in a wheelchair in school, surrounded by people and friends. And I'm thinking, he'll be all right. Turns out he was actually all right.
I was put in a neck brace. I still have this jersey in my one of my in one of my boxes of the jersey they cut off. It was a game jersey, and then they had to cut it off. I was like, just take it off. You can't just take it off, open my pads. And like, no, we have to cut it off. I was like, that's how much the uniform meant to me as a player, that I didn't want that. I'd rather be in pain to have them take it off and remove my pads instead of cutting my jersey off.
He regained his function, his legs, and his sensation, and he was fine. And I thought, okay, this was it. He was never going to play football again, because the risk to him was so much that he would say, okay, I don't want to do this anymore. And that actually very night that he got home from the hospital, he actually said, okay, when can I go back to practice? And I said, Trey, you just were transiently paralyzed. And his response was, but I love to play, and you're always telling me to do the things that I have passion for. So I said, fine, you'll keep on playing.
When he was in middle school, We didn't have any issues with academics or anything. Everything was fine. He was definitely closer to the A margin than B, high B's, A's. We saw a decline in academics, probably not a decline, but he got through middle school. But transitioning that summer from 8th grade to 9th grade is when we told him that he and his dad and I were going to get a divorce.
A process started being in place around our divorce, and that was a very seminal event in all three of our kids' lives, but probably Trey more than Bryce and Ty.
I started to see a change in Trey probably during the end of his 8th grade school year. That was a time where his dad was going to move out. But prior to that, he could notice that I was going through something, but I was adamant on not sharing with my children what their father and I were going through, because I don't think children should need to be involved with adult matters. But he one day called me a liar. He told my mother that I was a liar. And my mother was upset that my son is calling me a liar. So I had no idea what he was talking about. I really didn't know. I'm like, why are you calling me a liar? And when I sat with, and I just shall never forget our conversation. It was in our living room. And he said, I asked, why are you calling me a liar? Sorry. And then he said, because I see you crying all the time. And then you tell me nothing's wrong. And I know you're lying. That's why I'm calling you a liar. And that's the day I had to tell him that his father and I were going to get a divorce.
I was getting ready to go to practice over in Sharon. And I remember my mom coming to our room. I was putting my pads in my pants and and her closing my door and sitting me down on my bed while I'm rushing because I don't want to be late to practice. And she said, I need you to listen to me, just stop doing what you're doing, just listen. She sat me down and told me that your father and I are getting divorced. And I just remember my whole world shattering into pieces. Like life as I know it was about to change and be progressive over the next few years from that single moment.
Once I told Trey that we were going to get a divorce, I had a discussion with his dad that maybe we should probably put him in therapy just to make sure he's okay, because at that point he was not exhibiting any problems. But I just know that I believe in prayer and therapy, so I don't, you have to do both for me.
I did not go to football practice for 2 whole days. I barely even went to school. So that was a very big deal for me. Like for me, I remember going back even to like 5th grade. Even if I was sick, I would not go to school, but would want to go to football practice. So for me to skip over 2 days of full practice was a very big deal. And that was just the beginning of my bout with depression.
Freshman year was horrible. Trey was having a hard time getting work done, staying focused.
I just did not care about school. I would literally put my head down on the desk and go to sleep.
Right between freshman and sophomore year was when Trey started having more trouble in school. And it was kind of complicated to figure out because he exhibited some signs of depression, but there was also some concerns that his learning style may be manifesting some degree of adult or attention deficit disorder.
Being a former educator, I was an elementary school teacher. I know a lot of people typically don't want to give black boys attention deficit medication, but I was all for it because he could not possibly sit in a classroom all day long, listen to what the teacher's saying, and seeing what's going all around him. There's no way he could have done it because I saw how he was outside of the classroom, being a teacher and a mom. So we put him on the medication, and he was paying attention a little bit more in classroom, but it's just academically, he just was not in a space.
8th grade, freshman year of high school, my parents started their process of divorce. At this time, I was diagnosed with major depression as well as ADHD, and was put on antidepressants and Adderall between my 8th grade and freshman year. Because my parent, and at the same time I was also going to therapy. A lot of my brothers to deal with what was going on to my parents.
Situational depression occurs when a negative event or an extreme stressor occurs in someone's life, such as death of a loved one, divorce or breakup of a romantic relationship, retirement, loss of a job, the economy going down, or going through a natural disaster. And it's very normal for someone to develop depressive symptoms after any of those events occur.
I feel that I was predisposed to depression, and the divorce was a situational event which brought the depression out. Because I believe that I was born with depression. It was just a matter of time before the right chemical imbalance developed. The divorce from my parents had a major effect on me. Since I'm the oldest, I saw more and understood more compared to as my brothers did, and so I was kind of like the buffer. I was like kind of the buffer between my mom and my dad and my brothers, because I was like kind of the bridge between like the adults and the kids.
One of the things that was always clear about Trey is that it was easy when things were going well, but he never did well when challenged.
During his freshman year of high school, he did everything from A, B, C, D, E, F, G. He got by the skin of his teeth. He just wasn't academically into stuff. He just really wasn't. But football was his passion. And so we started to kind of use football. If you don't get your grades together, you're not playing football anymore.
He had struggled academically, but was still doing well enough because he wanted to play football. You couldn't play football unless you had, at least a C average. And he was doing somewhere between a B minus, C plus average, and kind of doing just what he needed to do to continue to be eligible to play football, but not a clear sense of what he wanted to do beyond that.
I begged them to allow me to play football, but they had set these standards up a long time ago, these expectations, so I was not able to play my junior year of football in high school, and that was a terrible feeling.
We knew Trey wasn't going to play football in college or be an NFL player, so football was not a priority for his dad and I. It was academics. So sophomore year, A, B, C, D, F, G, and then junior year, we said you are not playing. You are not playing football, because junior year is the most important year in high school to get it together to go to college. That's when things spiraled out of control.
As my senior year was wrapping up, all my friends were deciding where they were going to school, and we'd had these like study halls where we were applying to schools and doing all this stuff, and I had no idea what I was doing. During that period, I was messing around. I wasn't taking it too seriously. I was just seeing like what schools that way wasn't even being able to get into. I was just looking, but all my friends were sending in applications while I was still stuck. Like, I know what I'm trying to finish high school.
Right around that time of going into the spring, he must have been internalizing the fact that he didn't have a plan.
My friends were getting accepted into schools, and one of my good friends in high school who was a stoner, pretty much smoked pretty much every day, got into school while I sent applications in and did not get accepted at any schools. And that was just like a crushing blow.
Trey's kind of a laid-back type of young man, and he just wasn't thinking about life after high school, whereas everybody else is, is kind of applying to schools, and and that's when I realized he was, smoking a little weed. I'm not sure if he was drinking. I wasn't aware of the drinking, but I know after the fact he had been drinking, but I knew he was smoking some weed. And I think that he felt like life was passing him by.
I was very depressed and in my head, and I remember one day it was a week, I believe it was a weekend, and everyone had gone out left the house, and I thought it'd be a good idea just to kill myself, and overdose on a combination of Tylenol and NyQuil.
On April 12th, 2014, he tried to commit suicide.
Obviously, I drove up immediately with that news, and Trey and I spent the next 2 days in the Boston Children's emergency department because there was no psychiatric bed available.
I just won't forget that day ever. It was just to see your child hurt so much that he doesn't want to be around anymore. A lot of people don't know that Trey tried to commit suicide, so this will probably be a shock to those who are watching this. But only our close network knew that he tried to commit suicide.
At the time, she had called everybody, let them know what's going on. I hope it showed how many people cared about me. I had my mom's friends come in, and everyone was crying around me. And that was hard to see and to realize, like, I do matter, and people are around me and they care about me.
When I found out about Trey's suffering with depression, it made me sad. It made me sad to know that he was suffering with something that in our community people seem to feel like it's bad, like it's your fault if you're depressed, and that it's something that you're not doing right, or that maybe your family's not doing right. And I was sad for him, but I was happy to know at least there was a name to what was going on, and I felt like, having the family that he had, that he would be okay, that it would be addressed. And I know that his mom would address it and would give him the help that he needed.
I remember on Teacher Honda, my mom had left the room and left us alone together, and I was just like, what is going on? And I was just crying, and he just was like, I just been sad and depressed.
The main reason I wanted to take my life was because I was comparing myself to others. I didn't know what I wanted to do, my own path.
He just kept saying sorry, and I'm just like, I mean, you don't have to say sorry, it's okay. You feel the way you feel, and you have every right to. But it was then that I realized that this was more of an issue than I had thought it was. Yeah. And I don't think I even realized that until I was sitting there, and I was like, oh my God, seeing him in that bed was just I don't think I'll ever forget that. Trey
was in emergency room at Children's Hospital for at least 3 or 4 days because there were not any beds available for psychiatric help. To let you know, that's a problem with mental illness and the facilities. So he just stayed and he had to have a guard at his door. It was just a lot. He had to have, he was under watch for suicide.
Once it was clear that he was, physically fine, now the focus was going to be on his mental wellness. We were fortunate that he was admitted to Cambridge Health Alliance.
The facility was a locked facility. I mean, you can't get in there. It's locked like you're in prison. It was a lot. It was a lot to see. He was not talking to people. It was just a really tough. You just don't you don't know what to do as a parent, because you feel when your child's hurting. And it's not a physical pain, it's a mental pain. Until you have somebody who has depression, people have no idea what you have to endure. It's a lot.
That was my first experience dealing with any mental facility ever, and I felt kind of ashamed being there. One, because I was at the time, I was 18. Also, that psych ward had people from 12 to 18, and I felt ashamed because I was the oldest one there.
So I think during that time, the focus was actually on him trying to understand himself better, and you know, the little that he shared and that was also shared by his therapeutic team was, you know, his sense of disappointment to the family, his sense of disappointment to his mom and dad and his younger brothers about his own accomplishments.
Trey had a hard time coping with life. If anything goes wrong, he just can't handle it. And I don't know what was going. I think he didn't want to go to college. And for his dad's medical background, I have a master's education. I guess there's a lot of pressure. You have to have, gosh, my father does this, my mom does this, or has done this. But that wasn't Trey. So we were trying to make him go on a journey that he really didn't want to do. But most parents, you want your children to do better than what you've done. But like I said, now that I'm talking about all this and look back on things, we probably should have taken a different direction with Trey.
The focus that I wanted him to take away is that, you know, people love him, they accept him for who he is, and how can we help him be who he wants to be.
The hospital where he was released from, he wasn't able to go full time back into school. He just couldn't handle it. So through God's grace and mercy, he had enough credits to graduate. So he didn't have to finish his finals and all that. He just had enough he had everything he needed to graduate.
His school was remarkable in how engaged, supportive, modifying a schedule, and pretty much helping to assure that he was going to graduate in time.
With my senior year wrapping up, it was time for our senior prom. With my previous suicide attempt, probably 3 weeks before, I had asked my mom if I could go with my friend group at the time to the Cape, where they had rented a house out for after the prom, and they adamantly told me no. But I stewed in it for about a few days and decided I was going to go anyway, because I felt it was, all right, last time I'd be partying with people, I would just go all out and describe what they had to say. Just describe what they had to say.
Trey did the okey doke and decided not to come home after prom. And I'm still off of I'm still dealing with suicide thing, and no call. I had no idea where he was.
I went down to the Cape with my friend group, where we partied. I remember my mom blowing my phone around like maybe 1, 2 in the morning, wondering where I was, and I just ignored it.
I was just about at the point of thinking about transitioning jobs once again, and I was actually in Houston, Texas on my birthday on May 29th into May 30th when I got a call from Honda that Trey went to his prom and didn't come home.
I think I stayed up all night long. It's 3 o'clock. No, he's not answering his phone. 4 a.m., he's not answering his phone. 5 a.m., 6 a.m., 8 o'clock, I called the principal because I had a relationship with him. I called the principal. I have not heard from him. I need some of these kids' phone numbers. And he said, let me look into this and I'll call you back. He did some work and we found out he was down the Cape with some other kids, and he was fine. So I said, you tell them that I said he needs to come home.
I'm like, he's probably fine. He probably, you know, it's a rebellious thing. as long as he's not hurt, he'll be fine. But Honda obviously flipped out.
Once I got to the townhouse in the Cape, they had made this punch of different alcohol mixed into one, and I was drinking it like I was drinking it like it was water. I remember having 4 back to back, and then on top of that, smoking half a blunt to myself. Once I consumed all those substances, I vaguely remember passing out in the bathroom because from throwing up and just being so sick from the mixture and combination that I had done in the amount of time that I did it. I did all that in that short amount of time. I just want to get fucked up. There was just no right reason, really. Vaguely remember walking up the stairs to the bathroom and starting to throw up, and then just being stuck there like I couldn't move. So I was just so sick and so high, I couldn't move. And I just remember like the girl that the house was under, I remember her coming to the bathroom and just giving me a pillow and a blanket. She would just stay there, and that's all I remember that night. Just the way, when I look back on it, like it shows how my alcoholic addict tendencies were popping up just a few years before all this happened.
Got word from the streets, he needed to get home.
Finally went back home after I called my mom and tell her like where I'd gone. And I remember my friends dropped me off at home, and my mom already had a bag packed for me at the door. And when I rang the doorbell, she threw the bag at me and told me just to get out. And I was just like stunned, like I didn't know what to do.
He finally got home, and he was very drunk. He was drunk. And I thought he was being disrespectful. And I was so mad at him that he made me worry like that, didn't care enough about my feelings. I told him to get out of my house and go to your father's apartment. His father lived less than 7 minutes away from the house. I said, get out and go live with your dad. I had enough.
I get this call that, she kicked him out. And I'm like, I'm the really, it's not like you've been perfect. No, nobody's perfect. And, that led to a whole host of transiently, Trey moved into the apartment that I had still in Canton.
One of the parents like, they're kids. They're just kids. Not in this household. So I was very upset that he did not communicate with me, and I was worried. I think if the situation that had occurred the month before with his suicide, I probably wouldn't even cared. He's like, it's just senior year, kids hang out and don't come home. But I'm still on that suicide thing in my heart. I'm terrified. Where is he? I was not in a good space, and people couldn't understand that because they didn't know what was going on in our house.
She told me to just go walk to my dad's apartment, which was, I'd have to walk to the center of town. I didn't want to do that with a bag in my hand because it's such a small town, everyone knew who I was. So I just sat in the corner, and just waited. And then she finally left to do some errands. She saw me, I was sitting there crying and all that stuff. So I just dropped me off at my dad's apartment.
I just remember leaving to go somewhere. And he was at the end of the street behind the brick wall crying. And then, me saying, get your butt up. Get your butt up, get in the car. Or I might have said, go home, but I said, this whole thing is making me look back on stuff. Because, why would you be crying like that behind that stone wall? I'm so big on disciplining him. But something was obviously hurting him. I didn't know what it was, and now I think about it, I don't know what was hurting him so much, but that was the beginning of our trouble with alcohol.
He ended up walking for his graduation, and right at that point, the conversation focused on what's going to happen beyond his graduation from high school.
Once Mom had gotten over me with that situation, she was still mad at me, but she allowed me to come back home and soon after I did my graduation ceremony. Came home for, I don't remember the exact amount of time. Then I started help us, the family move, get the house packed up so they can move down to Georgia. And my plan for me was to move down to Philadelphia with my dad for an unspecified amount of time.
Tracy and I and the kids were moving to Georgia. All this was going on for his senior year. You know, the selling of a house and trying to pack up a house. It was a lot going on. It was a lot going on. And I thought it was best for him to go live with his dad in Philadelphia.
So Trey came to live with me, and pretty quickly I began seeing some growth, right? I said to him, you have to get a job or go to school or do a combination of both, as well as your therapy. He kept going to therapy. He got a job on his own.
While in Philadelphia, I stopped taking my antidepressants altogether. So I was off my meds for a good 4 months. While there, my dad was always working, so I was constantly alone, battling with my depression. I would sleep all day, watch TV, play video games, and then I finally got a night job where I went to work at 10 o'clock, and I would get off at around 3 o'clock. So I really didn't have any interaction with my dad whatsoever, because when he would get home, I would either be sleeping or just didn't want to be bothered really with any interaction. Because one of my things when I'm depressed is I isolate, and isolation is never a good thing for me. But because I was so used to it, I like to stay in it. I simply stopped taking my meds because I ran out of them, and didn't set up a psychiatrist appointment while in Philadelphia until the very end, until I was about 2 months before I left. That's when I finally got a psychiatrist and got back on my meds and finally got stabilized again.
Going to Philadelphia at the time, it appeared to be a good idea, but I think someone was still missing a little bit more nurturing from me. His dad's job was very, very busy, and he was always on the go and not home. And but Trey grew up a lot, though. I must say, he was doing things that he probably wouldn't have done with me. So by the time he came back to Georgia, he was able to do more things that I thought he couldn't do or couldn't do.
Every single school that I sent application to, I wasn't accepted to, and that kind of just was another blow. And I was just understand why. It wasn't like these were schools were prestigious school, but they were most likely they were out of my they were just out of my reach. And so I sat down with my mom and I asked her, I don't know what I need to do. I don't know what I'm gonna do. So she said you should enroll in a community college and get your GPA up, then transfer over to another school.
I gave him a choice. You need to probably go to community college. I need you to sign it. You just can't. You got to go to community college. So he started taking courses, and he just wasn't doing the work.
I applied to a community college near my house, and I got accepted to that, and I started going to school. Started school down here. While I was attending my second semester in college, I was taking a math course where I and some other courses as well, and I finally because after failing multiple tests, I was like, I'm gonna get my shit together this time. So I sat down and studied all day, did all the homework, and with the homework that I didn't understand, I went back over it and studied why I got the wrong answers, and worked on it all day Saturday. And then Sunday morning, when Sunday morning rolled around to take the online test, I sat down, took my time, thought about all the answers I was putting in, and then I submitted the questions and got, I believe, a 37, some ridiculously low score. And that's when, like, I just snapped. I remember just talking to TT and said, I just don't understand. I put all this hard work in for me to fail. And then I just closed in. I just put my laptop away in my room and just stopped talking.
So March of 2015, I had to go back to Massachusetts to help take care of my mom. She had a major surgery. And I was gone for I was supposed to be gone for 3 weeks to a month because the surgery was so serious. And I get a phone call. But prior to me leaving, I could see you have to pay attention to clues and people, how they act. For us, when Selwyn, excuse me, I'm calling him Selwyn, we call him Trey. When Trey, he loves to dress. Trey likes to smell good and Trey likes to look good. So when Trey is not showering, not brushing his teeth, and when he would wear his high school football shorts and shirt, that was a signal to me that he's majorly depressed.
The severe level of depression, at this point, someone is not able to get out of bed. They don't want to interact with other people, don't want to be in the world. They may stop going to their job, or if they do, their performance is affected greatly. It's almost like they just kind of disappear from the world. And you can kind of tell, it's almost like it looks like, you know, it's like there's no light on inside of them. It's like that no one's there. They seem very shut down, very flat.
He would sleep, didn't care. He's very lethargic and wasn't taking his meds. And that's another key thing. You have to take meds when you're clinically depressed. You gotta take your medicine. He wasn't doing that.
If we only give a person the medications without ongoing therapy, a pill can only do so much. Because all the pill does is help neurons and all the brain to fire the right chemicals, but you still need to learn how to cope better in life. So if you don't have the extra life skills and coping skills to go with that new found way of being able to like perceive your reality, change isn't real, it's just temporary. So you have to couple that with ongoing therapy.
I get a call from Tracy that he's not doing well, that we probably need to hospitalize him.
I completely shut down. TT got scared because it was showing all the same signs I did the year before when I tried to commit suicide, like all like the similar characteristics.
Trey was not talking at all, very much to himself. He just wouldn't talk to her. He would not speak. He's not showering. So those are clues for us that we need to get him hospitalized because of his past. I was afraid that he was going to hurt himself again because his depression was getting deeper and deeper and deeper. So Tracy had to take him to a local facility, which I know was very difficult on her. And at that point, he was over 18. And you don't have to go to a facility if you don't want to. So he had to sign himself in. And that was a little bit of a problem because he was refusing to do the paperwork.
I was not talking to anybody, so they really couldn't get a proper reading off me. And they were just getting all the information from TT at the time. So I was automatically 1013, which is where there's no choice in the patient whatsoever. Which means they have either a threat to themselves or somebody else, really, and there's no other way around that, and they're immediately hospitalized.
It's very different when he's depressed. So to make a long story short, I had to get on a plane and leave my mom and come see about my child. And once I returned home, Tracy told me that he didn't want to be there, and he had to They asked her to leave so she didn't have to witness, but they had to put him in restraints and take him away.
I remember just getting all this anger inside me when they were trying to pick me up and escort me out. I remember just fighting them and just not wanting to move.
Trey had to go to the facility. After he was released, they still had outpatient. So he would have to go every day from 9 to like 2 and just be in group sessions and individual sessions. It was just an intense program that he was partaking in.
That was my second time being hospitalized in a psych ward. First time was just more to be stabilized. This time around, it was to be stabilized and then a treatment program after.
Seems like he was getting better. And I had to go, this particular facility here in Georgia, they have family time where families go in and have group sessions for family members. It's a family week. It's a whole week of family coming in and you're talking to other people and you're hearing what other people are going through. So I went and I thought to myself, I'm not alone.
While there for 3 months, I was outpatient, so I didn't stay on site. I went home every day after long days of therapy and all stuff. In those 3 months, I learned a lot about myself, but obviously I did not learn enough about myself. Otherwise, I wouldn't be where I am today. But I'm grateful I'm grateful that I didn't absorb everything that I needed to listen to while there.
Addiction and to drugs and alcohol. I'm like, that Trey, we're not dealing with that. Oh gosh, we're so lucky we don't have to deal with that. And I did not know within the next several months, it was dead in our faces.
In the time frame of my senior prom and being admitted, I did not smoke weed once. I maybe had a sip of beer or wine here and there, but I was not using drugs or alcohol to the extent that I was going to be using them at.
And then he got this job at the sports bar.
Titi, she used to work at this office, and she'd go to lunch at this restaurant. And she became cool with the general manager, and she asked if they were hiring, and she said, of course. And I went in that day for an interview and got hired and started the next day. And that's when the drinking and the drugs became my life. Sports bar culture is that everyone drinks. Pretty much everyone drinks. So as I got more comfortable and the people started to know who I was in the restaurant, started to know who I was, became familiar with who I was able to start drinking, even though I was underage. At the time, when I started working there, I was 19 years old.
Sadly, a lot of people do turn to alcohol. We'll just start with that, because it's a way to just escape and numb out from those feelings for a while. It's a temporary relief that ends up actually having negative consequences, because alcohol is a depressant. So that's only creating further problems for the person who's trying to not feel depressed. But again, it's a way to kind of just numb out, find some way to cope with those negative feelings and negative thoughts that go along with depression. Again, the problem is though, is that the alcohol can just create further the depression, and I think create other problems that weren't there to begin with.
At first, it started off as just a beer and a shot. That's how it all started out. Just like nothing too crazy.
He would tell me, like, he was working in this, at the time it was like a bar or something. And he would tell me that he was drinking a lot. But the thing about Trey is, like, I had told him about my father, and my dad used, and he's currently an alcoholic. And, you know, I told him that, and I kind of was just like, you have to be careful because, you know, sometimes things that feel like minor at the time and aren't a big deal can definitely be a big deal later on. And he would always be like, yeah, like, I know, like, don't worry about me, like, it's fine.
I worked at this sports bar for just over a year. Actually, sorry, a little under a year. And around, I would say, 7 months, no, sorry, around the 6 month mark, 7 month mark, that's when my drinking and took a turn for the worse, really. I was drinking pretty much every day I was there. Now I had to work, I usually would work every day, so 7 days a week I was drinking. And then it got to a point where I had a routine where I would start off with a beer and then a triple shot of a drink, and then it would go do another beer, another triple shot, and then I'd have a strong mixed drink, then recycle to another double of another drink, and it was just this cycle that I would do every night.
I knew it was a problem. I remember the night, I wasn't actually in my dorm, I was in Marriott, I was here. And I was sleeping over, because I think I was here late and it's a far drive back to Decatur. And he had come home super late from work, and he was just like, he just smelled like alcohol, like, but it was like it was different. Like, I'm a college student, I know people drink, but it was like it was like his pores, like he just smelled like really like alcohol, and I'm just like, how much did you drink? And I could tell he was like really, really drunk. But that's when I knew like it was not normal, like something was up, like why are you drinking so much? I didn't think he was an alcoholic at the time, but I definitely knew something wasn't right.
Some of my coworkers were into cocaine, and I see them like they go into the bathroom and everything and do all stuff. And I was just curious at first. I was like, let me try that, and they were adamant because they had told, these are their exact words, we really don't want you doing this stuff. Like, this stuff is dangerous. Like, you're such a nice person. We don't want you to have this stuff corrupt you. I was like, I'll be fine. Just let me try it.
We were having lunch one day in Decatur, and we were like pulling up to the restaurant. He kind of like just casually said, yeah, you know, like I tried coke the other day. And I was just like, are you joking? Like, is that fun? Like, are you being funny? And he was just like, no, like I really tried it. Like, and I was just like, you tried it once? And he was just like, I mean, like I've been doing it a couple times. And I was just like, yeah, like you shouldn't do that. I was like, it's, you know, that stuff can get really addictive. Like, especially if you're drinking with it, like you have to be careful. And I remember in that moment that I knew that like it was a problem. Like he was doing it all the time.
First time I tried cocaine, I really didn't I didn't feel anything. And then one of my coworkers, she knew I was also dealt with depression. She's like, you should stop taking your meds. You'll feel it better. You'll feel the effects of it. And so I was taking my meds twice a day, and I stopped taking it. I would take it in the morning, and then I would not take it in the night, so I could feel the effects of the cocaine in the evening.
It was like a different high. It was like I could tell he was like out of it. Like he was not there. So I just like kept looking at him, like, are you high right now? And he was just like, yeah. My
body got like, the medication was at a lower level. I started feeling the real effects of the cocaine. And in my first week, I spent $500 on cocaine.
I remember like I would just tell him like, you know, like you shouldn't do that, like you have to be careful. But I knew, like, especially just cause like the stuff I know about my dad, and like I had known, and I feel like I should have said something, and I still feel guilty like till this day.
At first it was just drinking for the most part almost every day. I could go periods of time like 2-3 days where I wouldn't drink, but after probably around that third day I would be restless, irritable, and discontent because I didn't like the way I felt in my skin.
When people bottle their emotions and don't express them, those issues tend to continue to seep inside of them and boil over, and we find other maladaptive ways of dealing with those negative emotions. A very easy vice is alcohol and drugs. It numbs emotions, it gets rid of pain, but it doesn't last past the past a glass of wine or the joint or the pills. It goes away and you go back to normal. So yes, when we trap our emotions, we as humans want to escape pain at all costs. One good way to escape pain is use a drug. So I know why we use it, but it's the most unhealthy way of doing it, because it stifles your coping skills and it keeps you from developing a healthy developmental track.
So once I got a hold of cocaine and it got a hold of me, there'd be days where if I wouldn't be able to get it, I would I would crush up my Adderall and snort that, and that's how I started selling my Adderall as a way to make some extra money. Even though I was making pretty good money at this restaurant that I was working, my paychecks were pretty good, making a lot of cash. I was still selling my Adderall to just have extra surplus.
I think at that time, like, he was so far deep in it that maybe help wouldn't even have like done anything at the time. Just because I think he was in a different place than he is now.
One of the side effects of using cocaine is that you lose your appetite. And since I was doing so much a lot of the time, I would go, my average day I would eat maybe one meal a day, and it'd be like maybe a salad or a side of fries, and that'd be my routine. Because I was never hungry. So gradually I started losing a lot of weight. I probably lost 15 to 20 pounds from my drug use.
When I found out Trey was abusing alcohol and drugs, I guess I could say I was sad, but I think it's more than being sad. It was afraid for him. And it's easy for people to say, oh, I would never expect someone like him to use alcohol or drugs, to abuse them, or to become addicted. And I can't say that I felt that way, because I don't think you can say that there's no person that is the right person to become addicted to something. So it's not a certain kind of person. It's just something that some folks suffer from. So as a young man, I think I was more scared for him.
I noticed I was getting out of control. So I told myself I was not going to drink or use Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, because I class Monday and Wednesday, and Tuesday was going to be my study day. And also those are sometimes my days off for work. But that went out the window sometimes I would either go to class only before doing a line in the parking lot in my car, or if I'd be too hungover, I would go to the school and sit in the parking lot and go to sleep and act like I would go to class, and then come home and actually get in my bed.
I took him to New Orleans for a trip. He was almost 21, so 20. I was letting him drink, but then I was seeing like he was kind of out of control with it. Like drinking all kind of stuff. I mean, really drinking so much.
Me being like how I was excited because no one's known for drinking. Even though I was still underage, I probably knew I would still be able to get away with drinking. So one of the first nights we were there, my mom got some alcohol, because my mom drinks, so she's a normal drinker. She got a bottle of alcohol, and I was so tempted to just drink the whole bottle, like, to myself, like, a few times. But that next morning, we got up around 10 o'clock, and I told her, like, oh, let's take some shots at 10 o'clock, right when we woke up. Because that was my routine. I needed to have something in my system to feel right.
I said to myself, wow, he drinks a lot. Like, whoa.
Once we went kind of walk on our own, just my mom and one of her friends and there's some friends of hers were walking down Bourbon Street, and they were drinking, and I was drinking, like I said before, I was able to pass for over 21, so they didn't even card me, and I was just drinking away, and I had such a high tolerance. Like, everyone was starting to, like, stop, but I was like would keep going, and because I just had such a high tolerance for alcohol, because the amount I drank on a regular basis was probably double what the normal person would drink. So while everyone's still tipsy, I was still fine. And once again, my mom, I see, like, how my mom knows, like, my drinking and how it was.
What was smack dead in my face was March of 2016. One thing I learned, things have anniversary dates in your life. You have to be careful, because things will repeat itself. Things will just automatically come up. 2014, 2015, 2016, it was all between March and April, there's always something major occurring in his life. And sure enough, in 2016, and it seems like I was always out of town when something happened. Like, it was like I used to get tense when I would leave to go out of town to do something, because things always happened with him.
Thursday morning, I was not working that shift. A customer had come into the restaurant at the sports bar I used to work at, saying I heard you guys having an auction, and the bartender, not knowing what he was talking about, the customer pulled up a website that had all the TVs, chairs, the equipment in the back listed for sale. So the bartender called the GM, who was on vacation, to ask her what was going on, and she had no idea what was going on. So she came back early from her vacation, talked to the owner, and confirmed for us on Friday night that we would be closing that Sunday. I went to class as usual. I hadn't drank that much that day, so I actually went to class that day. I got out of class around 10:30, and then went over to my job, and they had already started. I told my general manager that night before that I had class in the morning that I'd be there around 10:30 to help clean up and get everything packed up. A huge table, laid out on a table of all this alcohol that was up for grabs. So I started drinking as soon as I got there, around 10:45, drinking dark liquor, brown liquor, shots of anything and everything. From 10:45 up until 9 o'clock that night. We made several trips to a storage unit, and on our way there, actually on the way back, me and two other coworkers opened a bottle of a type of whiskey, and we were drinking in the car, and pretty much drank 2/3 of the bottle. I probably drank 1/3 of the bottle to myself, just straight up. And by the time I got to the restaurant, I was feeling it. I knew, like, it was probably the most intoxicated I've ever been in a long time.
There had been a few incidents where Trey would come home intoxicated, but we could see that it was getting progressively worse. Like, he has a problem.
People were asking me, "Oh, are you okay to drive?" But me trying to be Mr. Macho Man, like, yeah, I'm good. I pulled out of the restaurant, parking lot, and took a right, and then I'd missed my turn to take a left, so I was gonna make a U-turn, and I was trying to light a cigarette at the same time while I was driving, and lost control of my car and went over a median and ended up in oncoming traffic. My car was still running, so I tried to move my car, and when I put my foot on the accelerator, my engine would just rev. So I called my coworker, who was there with me that day, and told her, like, what had happened, and I told her, like, I'm going to jail, like, I can't move my car. This is a busy road. and she told me just to run away from my car, and I was like, what do you mean run away from your car? Like, my name's on the car. They're gonna know who was driving the car. Matter of minutes of me getting in my accident, the police showed up. I remember it was a female officer that was the first one that arrived. After talking to them, seeing my car being put on a tow truck, and then me being put in handcuffs, and it was the first time I've ever been in handcuffs, first time having any running with the law, and I started crying like a baby, and I do remember telling the officers, just shoot me down, my life is over and over again. Just crying the whole time. Then they put me in the hot car, and I was taken to jail that night.
Tracy calls and says, "Have you heard from Trey?" I haven't heard from Trey. Mind you, it's 1 o'clock in the morning. I said, let me call him and see, maybe he'll answer the call that I call him. And he didn't answer, but there was a text that came back saying that I'm at a friend's house, I'm okay. And I don't remember all the verbiage right now, but it was not how Trey text.
I was taken into custody and booked. I was thrown in a cell. I believe it was for 2 hours or so, but I really don't know the time how long I was there. I remember going in, crying the whole time.
He told me I had to go take care of something, Mom, and then I'll be home. And he said, but I want you to know I was in a car accident. But I'm okay. The car's a little messed up, but I'm okay. And I was like, where's the car? Where's your car? And he said, it's, I don't know if it was towed somewhere. The story he told me, it was towed somewhere. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go get this guy I know to get it fixed. And I said, no, you tow that car to this house. Tow it home. Well, one of my friends, no, I want to see the car myself. Tow the car here. When they brought that car, the front axle was split in half. The wheels were out.
When my car arrived, my mom had saw how bad a wreck I got into. Because I tried to play it off like, oh, it wasn't that bad. But even the tow truck driver said that this was a bad accident. Luckily, it was a single car accident.
So I decided to call my insurance company so I can get the car fixed. First thing they asked me, was he arrested for DUI? Was there any DUI involved with this? I said, no. He's sitting right on my sofa. He hears me on the phone. I said, no, he wasn't arrested for DUI, no. He just had a car accident. Was any other car involved? I said, no, nobody else is involved. He's sitting on the sofa. He's sitting on the sofa. Here's the conversation, says nothing.
I was freaking out because I knew that they were gonna see that I'd been arrested. So I had therapy with Katie the next day, and my mom had to take me because I didn't have a car to drive. And I told her, just come inside, just sit down. So I went in and told Katie what had happened, and I told her that I need to tell my mom. I needed Katie kind of there as a buffer to see so she wouldn't freak out, and I knew she was gonna freak out, but be less.
Trey's therapist, wonderful therapist, Katie, comes out and says, Mom, I need to tell you something. He needs to tell you something. You need to come in. So I sit down, and he tells me that he was arrested for drunk driving. A part of me wanted to punch him in his face so bad. I wanted to beat him up. I was so hurt that he would lie like that. Especially when he hears me on the phone with the insurance company. At that point, you feel like, gosh, what am I gonna? He's getting older. He's almost 21. What am I gonna do with this grown man?
Once everything, all the truth came out, not all the truth just yet, but just about my drinking, I told my mom that I needed to go to treatment.
I call his dad and tell him what's happening, and he makes some phone calls, and we find a lawyer because we're gonna need a lawyer. He's been in Georgia is a zero tolerance for drunk driving under the age of 21.
I felt I did need rehab to go into rehab and into treatment because I obviously had a problem where I was drinking and using constantly. And it was at the institution where I was there before, so I was comfortable. I knew the staff there, so I knew comfortable knowing that I'd be safe. I can talk about what was going on.
While picking him up one day from one of his sessions at his facility, he said, "There's something I need to tell you." And you know when someone tells you that. So my heart sank. I was like, what else is he gonna tell me? I'm thinking he's gonna tell me somebody's pregnant. But he tells me, I have a problem with cocaine. I just remember hitting the steering wheel and screaming and crying. I just was like, it was a lot. It was a lot. And I was like, gosh, he's having trouble with drinking, and now he's a cokehead. He struggles with depression. And I said, ooh. I said, Jesus, I lost it. I did. It was hard to hear all that. I'm like, oh, it can't get any worse than this. Ugh, can't get any worse than this. We put him into an intensive program where he moved from our home and he lived at a place with people with problems just like him. Other men, he lived into an apartment and he lived there for 6 months. This facility he went to is a 3-quarter home. Housing is for structured sobriety. Has been it was a great, because he's finished with the program. He lived there for 6 months. He was able to go work. He was very structured. He couldn't come home. If he were to come home, he had to get a pass. Like you're in the military, you had to get a pass. He had to get a pass to come home. We could go see him anytime we wanted to, but he had to let them know where he was going. He had to be in by 11 o'clock. Or it was very structured. They had to turn the keys into this particular thing. So that worked out for him. It did make a difference for him.
Instead of him building up a wall of resistance like a lot of young people do, like this can't be happening to me, I can't stop drinking, I'm only 19, I'm only 20, I'm only this age, he embraced it. He began to look at himself as an integral part of his sobriety, which is key. And he also followed suggestions. For a young person to do that sometimes is amazing, to actually follow suggestion.
It's hard to get a child, he's not a child, he's a young man, clean at 21 when most 21-year-olds are drinking and drugging. That's our reality. He had to be in a situation, an environment where people were in the same predicament as him and they were kind of doing it together. But it's hard to stay sober if you're still around the same people.
I got in the habit of going to ADLs every morning, Monday through Friday from 9 to 10. It was kind of like a group therapy setting. We would talk about anything that's going on that's hindering your sobriety. You could talk about that in any group. And one of the main things they wanted to push was that don't hold anything in, because I've learned that to talk about it's the best way to get things out, and asking for help, really. Because at the end of the day, I learned this from personal experience, by holding things in and not telling anybody about it, it literally eats you alive from the inside out.
Selwyn and I did a lot of self-esteem groups, which is integral in becoming a sober individual. We also did a lot of like men group, where you can just deflate the testosterone and talk about how tough it is to be a man, or what your concept of a man is. I really enjoyed doing groups like that with Selwyn. But also what I was able to do with him coming in and saying that I need to address certain issues in his lifestyle, I was also able to introduce to him and help him see the different ways that are effective with recovery, you know, or the different needs for recovery, I should say. The way that he's recovered is the 12 steps in tradition, which is for me my most favorite approach to sobriety.
At first I was like a little like scared to say, like, talk about how I was feeling, but I got comfortable enough to sit and talk about, like, if I was going through something, and we would talk about it, like, and I'd get other people's responses and how maybe I've dealt with similar situations. So it was really a brotherhood where we support each other.
A lot of times we accept the dysfunctional component of the disease of addiction, or the dysfunctional component of any mental health ailment. And what I mean by saying that is, from a culture standpoint, we're outed if we're deemed weak. And most of our addicts, a lot of time they're deemed weak. Like the disease module is not understood well enough. So family members is just ask questions like, "Well, why won't you just stop?" And honestly, you know, after sitting and talking with a lot of addicts in general, let alone African American addicts, most of them would stop if they could, or if they knew how, or if there were processes and resources to help them. But it's fairly, and I don't want to sound biased, it's always been in America, it's been hard to be black, but it's hard to be a black addict in active addiction. It's hard to be a black mental health patient.
Within a month of being at the sober living, my dad had allowed me to get my car back, got me insurance, and he made his stipulation was that I get a job as soon as possible. So, and otherwise he would cancel my insurance. So I got on my grind.
If a person is not serious about their sobriety, it's going to show in 3/4. You know, they're going to get rebellious again, and they're not going to follow suggestions. I can't say that about Selwyn. He followed suggestions. He stayed the full length of stay, and he stayed a little past. You know, and he asked questions. He would ask me personally, "Do you think I'm ready to move out, Dex?" And you gotta laugh. You gotta laugh at the availability of that teaching platform. You know, you gotta laugh, and you gotta give him an honest answer. So honestly, I lied a few times, say, "No, you're not ready," because I wasn't ready for him to leave. But you know, we got around to the honesty, which is he was getting more and more ready to leave. So he completed 3/4.
It's sad to say, but not everyone stays sober. Out of the probably 15 guys in the 6 months I was there, probably including myself, there probably went maybe 12 guys through that apartment in my time there. At this time, currently, just myself and 2 others are still sober to this day.
As a result of Trey's DUI, we found out that we had to go to court, so we got a lawyer that really helped us guide us through different things that occur in the state of Georgia when you get arrested for DUI.
Going in, my attorney told me like would try to get me down to just, instead of a DUI, get it reduced down to reckless driving, which would not be nearly as bad as a DUI. So going in, that was my mindset, like, okay, I'm gonna get this reduced down, everything be okay. But we are kind of hearing where we got the results from blood tests, because it took forever to get those blood tests done, because I understand like the system's super backed up. So we got the results, and Mom and I, and he kind of pulled us to the side after he looked at him. He told me there's just no way I can get this reduced down to reckless driving, because my blood results that were taken said I was 3 times over the legal limit, so I was 0.24.
The attorney let us know there's some things he's going to need to do that he wants him to do prior to going to his court date, and that was nothing but God all over it.
Within a week of getting my car back, I got a job, and that was just from the brotherhood and my brother from helping me out. Not my biological brother, but my brother that I got to know being in the sober living.
The charges hung over him for several months. By the time he was in court for his final hearing, he had done a fair bit of work around therapy, around community service, and a whole bunch of other things that made the judge decide favorably on his case. And he's now in a probationary phase, and he is working, and just this upcoming in like 3 days will be serving as getting promoted to an assistant manager at the place that he works. So he is seemingly on the right track of finding himself.
He was in that program. We lived there for 6 months. He did a recovery program. He went to DUI school, and so by the time he went before the judge in court, the judge said he had never, in all his 20 plus years of being a judge in the state of Georgia, that he's never seen anyone to get so many things done prior to becoming to sentencing. He had never seen that before.
At first I was literally going to be charged with DUI, drinking underage, and failure to maintain lane. Only thing I was charged with was DUI since I turned 21. So I was sentenced to 1 year probation, 40 hours community service, and some fines. Leading up to my 21st birthday, I was super nervous, but the thing that I actually enjoyed, I was actually able to remember my 21st birthday. I feel like after doing everything I've done, like, not one time did it cross my mind to drink. Even though at one time we were sitting right in front of a bar, like it did not once cross my mind to drink, even though I was able to legally do it. And that was a weird feeling, knowing that I can go and do whatever I wanted without the fear of alcohol being around me. Because that's one thing, alcohol will always be around. You can't just run away from it. So, but that was a good feeling. Coming into sobriety, it hasn't been easy. I lost a friend, and I've seen a lot of stuff, and it's not always gonna be this great thing. It's life, but I have a way to deal with life without using other substances to numb my feelings and emotions. To this day, I have 465 days clean from a single drug or alcohol. And that's astonishing to me, because I never thought I'd be sober this long. But I've seen all the great things that come, because alcohol isn't bad. Alcohol isn't the problem. I was a problem. So I've learned to live life without substances. It hasn't been easy over the past year. Losing Alex, and then right now at this time, one of my good friends that I'm very close to, he's back out there again, and it hurts really, but there's only so much I can do without putting my own sobriety in jeopardy. So at the end of the day, all I can do is just pray, and pray for people. Because I know prayer is a powerful thing. It's got me through some rough times. And that's nothing why Alex was so important to me, because I remember there was one time when I really wanted to go back out and go get high, go get drunk, and I called him, and he talked me down from relapse. Through this journey, I've learned a lot about myself and everything. So I've actually found a new passion, which is to work in the addiction field and start working as a counselor. So going in, last month I started my first classes for a CAC, which is a certified addiction counselor. I started that because even before all the drugs and alcohol, like I've always loved to help people, and knowing that I can help people that deal with the same things that I deal with would be a great feeling for me. As well as, because especially in the Black community, no one wants to accept or recognize that their son, daughter has a drug or mental health disorders. They just want to think, oh, they'll outgrow it. So maybe seeing someone of color can kind of break those barriers down.
I sound corny, but keep believing in yourself, that you're the only person that you need to make happy, that you're the person that you need to impress. Don't worry about impressing your parents, your friends, other people that love you. It's nice to make other people proud of you, but you're the person that you need to be proud of. You need to make yourself proud for yourself.
You're gonna be a fine man because you're a worthy and experienced young man. I love you and I'm proud of you. Keep on moving.
No matter what, like, I'll always be your friend, and like, I'll never judge you. And that, like, don't ever be afraid to like get help, and if you ever feel some type of way, like, you can always like come to me. And I might not say like the right things, but like I will do my best to help you. And I feel like that is something that I struggle with, because in a way I feel like he was telling me everything that was going on so that I could tell somebody, and I didn't. And I think that I just want him to know that, like, don't be afraid to talk to me and like tell me like honestly like how you feel. And I think that, like, when even today when he says, you know, like, I feel depressed, I'll be like, okay, like, let's evaluate that. Like, why do you feel that way? And just like, yeah, just like, don't be afraid. And that, like, I'll always be here for you.
We're proud of him for continuing to get better and not, you know, he's growing up, and we're proud of him for that. He doesn't so heavily rely on us as he used to when he was younger. And that I hope that he can continue doing this.
And we're happy for him, and we just want him to keep on doing good things for himself.
I am thankful to Daddy. Some call him Daddy. I call him Daddy, the man above. If it wasn't for him, we wouldn't be where we are today. We are 1 year, actually it's over a year now. April was 1 year clean of sobriety. It was very, for the cocaine and the drink has been 1 year. Sure, are there days he might think about it or want it? Of course, that's never gonna go away. But I'm very proud of the progress he's made. I keep telling him, you know, you have to choose your circle wisely, because it's hard. He's only 21. Young men his age are always drinking or sometimes using some weed, or he can't do anything. He can't. So I'm proud of him. He has to choose his circle wise, because some people don't understand, they don't care. But like I said, we're very, very proud of the progress he's made, and we pray that he continues on this journey. But I think Trey, you know, God has a plan for all of us. It's not what we want, but I really think that the impetus behind this is Trey really wants to help other people. He wants to help other young people like him. He just really does. He has the biggest heart. I'm telling you, if I would let him, he'd bring home homeless people today. He's just a sweet, sweet, sweet young man, and we're very proud of the progress he's made. and his future is bright.
An inspiring word for Trey is that you are blessed. And I think you always have to remember that your greatest asset is you. And your ability to connect with others, your ability to bring a smile to a room, and your natural God-given charisma is your strongest asset. And as you know, you don't have to work to be your authentic self, because if you are your authentic self, it shows. And I think in many ways the things that you have been on your journey thus far is just you being authentic, and people appreciate and love you for that.
Some people think that therapy, it's like they shy away from it because, like, I don't really want to go and tell a stranger all my problems. Like, that seems kind of weird. And they might be afraid. It's like, man, what if they judge me? What if they think I'm crazy? You know, this is going to be uncomfortable. And I have to say, it takes a lot of courage to go and do that, especially if you've grown up and it's like, hey, you need to keep the biz to yourself. But if you find, that's why I encourage people to look around for a therapist that's a good fit, one that you feel like, hey, you know, whether you're looking online at someone's website or getting a referral word of mouth from somebody that you know that's been to therapy, find somebody that you feel comfortable with. Like if in the first session, you're like, wow, you know, I feel like this therapist is really getting me, they're understanding me, I feel comfortable, even though it still feels a little weird opening up to someone I don't know, then hey, that's great. Stick with that person. Keep going. The awkwardness will go away eventually.
In the state of Georgia, there's a Georgia Crisis and Access line. It's a free number that you can call 24 hours a day, where you can get help at your local county level. It may take a while to get help, but the number is available. So you can call that number. Any county in the state of Georgia, they will refer you to a core provider, which may take insurance or may not, but you should be able to get some help. Another thing that you can use is a United Way 211. You can call them to ask for any services in your area. Don't forget the church. Every pastor is a counselor, not trained in mental health, but it can be some assistance if you don't have any help at all. So pastoral counseling is always available, and it should be free because the pastor's working for a higher authority and not for you. So those are 3 ways that you can get some help if you don't have any resources, but there should be some providers that may do like a sliding scale, but there should be some help that you should always be able to get. Don't think that there's none available. Always ask before you think there's none available.
Please remember and know that depression is a real illness, and it's a very serious illness. If you are diagnosed with depression, it does not mean that you're crazy, and it's certainly not something to be ashamed of. It is not a moral flaw. It's not a matter of willpower or laziness or choice. For young adults ages 18 to 25, the research shows that the rate of depression is 9.6%.
I think of a mental illness as being a weight on your body. So imagine if you're trying to climb a mountain. That's already very hard already. But let me put a backpack on your back, and let me put about 50 pounds of bricks on that backpack, and take your shoes off and put ice on that hill. Now you go ahead and climb that hill. It'll be all right. Just climb. That's what mental illness feels like. So we need to be a little bit more cognizant, a little bit more aware and respectful of the pain that mental illness causes, and not just think it's no big deal. Too many people believe that and let it sit for too long. The longer we let any illness, mental or medical, sit without treatment, there's a worse prognosis. So when you first feel that you're feeling different or by yourself or isolated or having some weird thoughts, get help immediately. Don't wait 5 years. That's too long. Get help early and often to make a better prognosis.
Some healthy distractions when someone is feeling depressed is get up and do something that where you're actually moving versus kind of staying in a state of inertia. Depression is a disease that lends itself to, or the person to not wanting to move at all, to being very listless. So to counteract that, maybe going on a walk out in nature, or doing some other form of exercise. It might be reaching out to a friend and just saying, hey, can we go out and get coffee? Or can I come over and hang out for a little bit? And talking to them about how you're feeling. Could be calling a hotline. There are some out there that for someone who's feeling depressed or suicidal, you can call that number, and there are volunteers, trained volunteers on the other end of the line that can just be a listening ear or talk you through it. I also encourage people to do some journaling, write about how you're feeling, versus trying to ignore it or remove the feelings. You know, really sit with them and understand where they're coming from.
Through my journey, I've learned that everyone has their own path and it's not going to be perfect. Sometimes you may take some detours, but you're still moving forward.